Hello, BookTube and AuthorTube. This is the road to NaNoWriMo. Today I want to run down a quick idea or a really quick look at some of the research topics I want to look into as I further develop my various ideas. So, starting with the most realistic story. Right now, I probably will need to research how local small town papers operate, and also small town libraries. Both a small town paper and a small town library will feature prominently in the story, so I need to have a good idea of how they run. And then also, I need to look into the history of McGregor and probably some other small towns in central Texas. Moving on to the contemporary fantasy, or as I'm calling it, the realistic fantasy. I'm probably going to expand out and look into local folklore or urban legends. And these are sort of the modern ghost stories and cryptids and all of that sort of stuff. And surprisingly, McLennan County has a good body of, an extensive body of local urban lore and folklore. And there's a book, I'm blanking on the name of it, and I'll link it, I'll list it down below because it shouldn't be that difficult for me to find. That was a really amazing read. So I'll probably draw on a lot of what I remember from that book. I don't think I have the money to add it to my library. I think it's quite expensive. It was very limited interest in release, so copies are probably going to be quite expensive. And I can't check it out at the library because of the ongoing pandemic. So I'll use what I can remember of the book, and then also expand out to online sources, which I'm pretty sure there should be a lot. I mean, I know there's like Weird US that I think has a section on Texas, and then I'm pretty sure there are others. And then also witchcraft, because I do have an idea for a witch character to be quite prominent. And I do have a book on witchcraft, Ronald Hutton's The Witch, but I don't think it's quite right for what I want. And I do know there's a book that is really close to what I want. It's Owen Davies' America Bewitched, which is a book, a look at witchcraft in America from Salem to the present. And there are quite a few chapters, particularly in the middle of the book, that I think are really sort of inspirational and really sort of a good foundation for research. So I think I really need to pick that book up. There's a copy in my local library, but again, I really can't access it because of the pandemic. So, and it's long since time I've added it to my collection. So, good kick in the pants to go ahead and ordering it in. Not sure if I want to order it from Libris or Book Depository. I'm not entirely sure what else I could really need to research for the either realistic or realistic fantasy. But moving on to the secondary world, in which I pretty much create the world wholesale or whole cloth. Everything, pretty much all of the above to a degree, and then also history of Texas, and also probably other sort of southern and southwestern states, particularly in like the 19th and early 20th centuries. My idea for the secondary or the made-up world is sort of a mix of weird western, steampunk, diesel punk, gothic, southern gothic. So I need to look more into what sources and where I want to research in that direction. And a lot of that depends on sort of what ideas I'm generating on my own and adding more stuff I need to research, or more subjects I need to research. Right now, it's looking like the secondary world might, as far as like looking for a plot, which I will touch on next week. I think that's what I want to focus on for the rest of this week, is really determining which way I want to go. Realistic fantasy, contemporary fantasy, or a secondary world. And once I determine that, I'll have a better idea of what I need to research. But right now it's looking like the realistic fantasy or contemporary fantasy is the way I want to go. It has, right now, is like the most attractive and interesting sort of hooks in, I think, plot potential. The realistic fantasy, the realistic novel, maybe I should just keep calling it the contemporary fantasy, otherwise I'm going to get mixed up between the realistic novel and the realistic fantasy. Anyway, we'll work on that later. Could be helpful if I actually had some titles, something else I need to work on. But anyway, so the realistic novel, I'm struggling to figure out what the plot is. It seems to be too much like character, it's more character driven, but I'm not entirely sure where it's going. And so that's something I need to work on, and maybe I'll have a breakthrough or not, I don't know, and maybe just realistic fiction is not for me. I won't say literary fiction, because that implies literary fiction can only be realistic, and that is not true. Okay? Okay. We're clear on that. Literary fiction does not necessarily have to be realistic. Anyway, moving on. So, the contemporary fantasy, I think I have a stronger idea of what I want to do. Although, as I will touch on next week, I might end up being preempted, so that's an interesting topic to look at. But I want to kind of develop my ideas further before I make that decision. And then the secondary world fantasy, there are some ideas I have, some potential. I'd have to switch a few things around, but I think there might be potential there too, but it's not grabbing me as much as the contemporary fantasy is. So, we'll reconvene next week, and hopefully I'll have more concrete ideas of where I want to go. And also I will, as I research, as I world build, as I create characters, as I determine how I'm going to tell this story, I'll have a better idea of we will have a research updates interspersed. So that might be fun. So I think that's all I have for today. So I'll end it here. Thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and stay safe. And I will see you tomorrow with a Shakespeare tag from Steve Donahue. Thank you, BookTube.